What up, this is Rama Screen covering movies, TV, and entertainment, and here's my review of Netflix new event series, The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. Hey, before you watch this review, please subscribe to my channel, press that like button, and ring that bell so you can get notified whenever I post new videos. And if you would like to help support this channel, please do so at patreon.com/ramascreen. That's patreon.com/ramascreen. Let's rock this. First up, I would like to say thank you to Netflix for granting me the screeners to the entire 10 episodes of this new series. Now, they've asked me not to spill any major spoilers, therefore I will honor their request, and so this video is spoiler free. I repeat, there will be no spoilers in this review. Alrighty then! The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance is a fantastic, thrilling prequel, and I don't usually sing such high praises about prequels in general for obvious reasons, but this one, not only does it stay true and live up to the spirit of the original film, The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance also makes for a perfect companion piece that answers every question you might have about the 1982 classic film, which, by the way, as you know, was directed by Frank Oz and the late great Jim Henson. The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance's story is captivating, the characters are fascinating, the threats are ever present, and the stakes are high, and the whole thing is like this massive, far-reaching Lord of the Rings type journey that is so engaging, you can't wait to see how it all plays out. The story is set many years before the events in the 1982 feature film. In the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, the Skeksis have been using up the power of the Crystal of Truth to the point where the effects are running low, so they have to find an alternative. And because of what has happened to the Crystal of Truth, the result is that the world of Thra is dying, and there's a sickness that starts spreading across the land. 3 Gelflings, Rian, Deet, and Brea, from 3 different tribes of Gelflings who generally don't get along with or are suspicious of one another, uncover the horrific truth behind what Skeksis are actually doing, and this situation leads to an adventure that sparks a rebellion and the epic battle for the survival of the planet. If you are familiar with the original film, then you would probably remember that not too long after the film was released, there were these graphic novels and comic books that were published that serve as a way to sort of further explain the world and the mythology surrounding the Dark Crystal, all of which I have not yet read, by the way, so I don't know if any of those books were used as inspiration or as reference for this new series. But I'm sure that they somehow helped in providing sort of a broad canvas, if you will. Okay, so here's the greater intention of the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, really. Are you ready? Okay, here it is. Whatever plot holes that are in the 1982 film, there is an origin story for each of those things in the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. And I think you will find these origins to be sensible, and they will meet your expectations, I guarantee it. The puppetry is handled with good care, obviously, because much of the heavy lifting was done by the maestros at the Jim Henson's Creature Shop. And I gotta tell you, I was concerned at first because we are living in today's world where we are frequently bombarded with all kinds of 3D CG stuff, so I did worry that the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance may not be able to find a place in today's sophisticated audience anymore. But I think that that is what I appreciate about this show, in that it doesn't try too hard to appeal to those who were never really crazy about puppets in the first place anyway. This show caters mostly to the fans. And on top of that, the CG elements that are added in, they enhance everything that's practical about the world of Thra and its characters. The CG on this show enhances the colors and the environments, and it also makes some of the sequences look more appealing and more visceral. And I noticed that particularly for the Gelfling characters on the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, the Gelflings seem to have more facial expressions. Either that, or the puppets have various facial expressions readily available for a wide range of emotions, compared to how simplistic and one-note the Gelflings looked in the 1982 film. So this advancement is absolutely great, and I'm really curious now to see any behind-the-scenes footage that would reveal how the puppeteers pull that off. And another thing that I also appreciate is that unlike the 1982 feature film, where clearly at times they used an actual person to, for example, show Gelfling Jen climb up a rocky mountain, in this one there seems to be no such instance, not even for 1 second, where they try to cheat their way, because it's all entirely completely puppets, but the trick is filming them from the right angles and with good editing work so as to make them look and move as realistic as possible, which I think this show successfully cracks the code on. Now, this is not necessarily a joke, and I don't know if it applies to everyone, but I personally cannot eat food while watching the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, because just looking at the designs for the Skeksis alone makes my stomach churn. One of the Skeksis, I kid you not, has these boils on her, and she's sick. She has this big flu, so there's this disgusting snot and mucus that keeps coming out of her nose. I kind of get that that is part of the humor, and it's kind of funny if you think about it, but I can't get through that without cringing a bit. But that also goes to what this show tries to accomplish overall, actually. Yes, I do think that children can be its target audience, but just know that the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance is not afraid to rattle your comfort cage occasionally, and sometimes even sends chills down your spine, especially when the spitters enter the scene. And the way the Skeksis drains the essence from the Gelflings is vicious and ruthless. Your heart melts for those poor tiny creatures that are easily overpowered by those nasty-looking flightless birds. All 10 episodes were directed by Louis Leterrier, the filmmaker who gave us The Incredible Hulk, The Transporter, Clash of the Titans, and Now You Can See Me. I know. Maybe Louis Leterrier's involvement or just the mere mention of his name does not give you confidence, perhaps because you were not too crazy about his previous films, which is totally understandable. But I think in this particular case, I think Louis did a solid job with The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. There are many creative choices throughout these 10 episodes that I consider to be pretty cool. This seems to be the work of somebody who is a fan of the 1982 film. And Louis knows exactly how to appropriately structure the story and the character development that would give the Gelflings and the Skeksis and Mother Aughra their fair share of screen time before their ultimate collision at the end. Each episode also comes with its own action spectacles that are intense and well executed, although for whatever reason the cinematography often pans away during a dialogue or in the middle of a conversation between characters. So I just find that a tiny bit irritating. As far as the performances go, let me just say that I betcha if you don't look up IMDb, you would be shocked and surprised to find out the many big-name A-list celebrities that actually participate as the voice stars. From Andy Samberg and Jason Isaacs to Simon Pegg, from Lena Headey and Alicia Vikander to Helena Bonham Carter. Of course, you can immediately tell that Mark Hamill is the voice of the scientist because it's so distinct, but most of the guys behind Skeksis, their voices did get some alteration a bit so that they would sound extra menacing, especially when they do their maniacal villain laugh, which they do a lot. But for some of them, including Taron Egerton as Rian, unfortunately they sound like they're doing a table read instead of voice acting and making it come off organic. Now, is it necessary for you to watch the 1982 film first before you go watch The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance? The answer is yes and no. For those of you who have seen the original film, you will have fun watching this one and finding yourself saying, "Oh, so that's how that one came to be. Oh, so that's where so and so came from. It makes total sense now." But for those of you who haven't seen the original film, I think you will be blown away by this wonderfully epic, visually rich, vibrant world. The themes are very relevant because each Gelfling tribe has their mistaken preconceived notion about other fellow Gelflings. Kind of like how we in our society sadly treat one another. Sometimes the Dark Crystal Age of Resistance can get a little scary, but more often it can also be hilarious, and those gibberish talking podlings are responsible for that. Well then, get ready to be fully immersed in this enchanting, exciting adventure, so much so you are not gonna want it to end.